Commander Han Jaiwoo stood at the main window of Earth Defense Station Alpha, watching as another human fleet burned in the cold vacuum of space. The Naver Collective ships moved with terrible precision, their energy weapons cutting through human shields like they weren't even there. 3 years, Jaiwoo whispered, her fingers pressed against the glass. 3 years of losing. Behind her, the command center hummed with desperate activity. Officers spoke in hushed voices, their faces pale in the blue glow of emergency lighting. The station shook slightly as distant explosions continued. "Commander, Professor Kim is here," said Lieutenant Ryu, his uniform wrinkled from days without rest. Jaiwoo turned to see Professor Kim Doyen enter the command center. The scientist looked exhausted, her lab coat stained with coffee and her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. But her eyes were bright with something Jaiwoo hadn't seen in months: hope. "Is it ready?" Jaiwoo asked. Kim nodded. "The quantum locking technology works in the lab. We've installed it on the HSS Steadfast. It's ready for a field test." "We don't have time for tests," Jaiwoo said. "The Navers have broken through our last line of defense. Earth has maybe 3 days before their main fleet arrives." They walked together to the viewing bay where the experimental battleship waited. The HSS Steadfast wasn't the largest ship in Earth's fleet, but its sleek hull now contained humanity's last hope. Special panels covered its surface, housing the quantum processors that Kim and her team had developed. "It works by shifting the ship into multiple quantum states at once," Kim explained. "In theory, the ship exists in several places at the same time. Enemy weapons can't hit what isn't definitely there." "And our weapons?" Jaiwoo asked. "They work the same way. They exist in quantum uncertainty until the moment they hit their target. The enemy can't see them coming, can't track them, can't block them." Captain Nam Sun-hee approached them, her steps quick and determined. "My crew is ready, Commander. We've trained on the simulators as much as possible." Jaiwoo studied the young captain's face. "You understand this is likely a one-way mission?" Everyone on board volunteered, Sun-hee replied without hesitation. "We're ready." 2 hours later, the HSS Steadfast slipped away from Earth's defensive perimeter. Its mission was simple: intercept the incoming Naver scout fleet before they could report Earth's weakened defenses back to their main armada. On the bridge, Captain Nam settled into the command chair. "All systems active. Quantum lock engaged." The ship hummed strangely as the new technology activated. Officer Park Minji at the tactical station gasped. "Captain, look at the visual sensors." On the main screen, they could see their own ship, and yet not one ship, but many overlapping images of the Steadfast, all slightly out of phase with each other. "It's working," Minji whispered. "We exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously." They didn't have to wait long for the test of their new technology. The Naver scout fleet appeared just where intelligence had predicted, 6 sleek predatory ships moving in perfect formation. "They've spotted us," reported Officer Kong Juno. "They're charging weapons." "Hold position," ordered Captain Nam. "Let's see if Professor Kim's theory holds." The first volley of Naver energy beams lanced toward the Steadfast. The crew held their breath. The beams passed through the ship as if it were a ghost, causing no damage. "No impact," shouted Minji, her voice filled with disbelief. They missed. The second Naver attack simply vanished before hitting the ship. The quantum state of the Steadfast had shifted, moving it milliseconds into the future as the weapons passed through present space. "Our turn," said Captain Nam. "Target the lead ship and fire." The Steadfast's energy cannons fired. The beams existed in quantum superposition, becoming definite only at the moment of impact. The lead Naver ship had no warning, no chance to raise shields. It exploded in a silent flash. The remaining Naver ships tried to surround the Steadfast, firing from all directions. None of their shots had any effect. The human ship seemed to blur, to be everywhere and nowhere at once. When the battle ended, all 6 Naver ships had been destroyed. The Steadfast hadn't suffered a single hit. Captain Nam opened a channel to Earth Defense Command. "Commander Jaiwoo, this is the Steadfast. Mission accomplished. The quantum lock technology works beyond our expectations. The neighbors couldn't touch us. In the command center, Jaiwoo allowed herself to smile for the first time in years. Return to base, Captain. I think it's time we took the fight to the enemy. As the Steadfast turned toward home, its quantum-shifted hull gleaming in the starlight, humanity had its first real hope since the war began. Captain Lee Taehyun felt the neural interface connect to his mind. It was like diving into cool water, a moment of shock followed by a strange clarity. The quantum processors of the HSS Steadfast linked directly to his thoughts, allowing him to see and feel the ship's multiple states of existence. Neural connection stable, reported Medical Officer Jang Hyojin, watching his vital signs carefully. Brain activity is within expected parameters. Taehyun opened his eyes. The bridge of the Steadfast looked normal, but his perception had changed dramatically. He could see ghostly outlines of other versions of the bridge, other positions the ship might occupy in the next few moments. It was disorienting at first, but also strangely beautiful. I can see them, he said quietly. All the possibilities. In the 2 weeks since the Steadfast's first victory, Earth scientists had made a revolutionary discovery. The quantum locking technology didn't just make the ship hard to hit. It allowed glimpses into probable futures. With the right neural interface, a specially trained pilot could navigate these possibilities, choosing the most favorable outcomes. Captain, we're detecting a neighbor battle group, said Officer Kong Subin from the tactical station. 3 heavy cruisers and their escorts, 12 ships total. They're hunting us, Officer Yoon Hwa-yeon added. After we destroyed their scout fleet, they've been searching this entire sector. Taehyun nodded. Let them find us. The Steadfast moved toward the neighbor formation. Through the neural interface, Taehyun could see the enemy ship's positions, but also where they would be in the next few seconds. He could perceive the energy buildup in their weapons before they fired, could feel the intentions in their movements. They've spotted us, Subin reported. They're surrounding us. The neighbor ships moved into attack position, forming a sphere around the lone human vessel. Their weapons powered up simultaneously, preparing to fire from all directions. Taehyun smiled slightly. They think they're clever. When the neighbor ships fired, something remarkable happened. The Steadfast appeared to fragment into multiple overlapping versions of itself. The enemy fire passed through these phantom images harmlessly. Some shots even curved away at the last moment, as if space itself bent around the human ship. Return fire, Taehyun ordered calmly. The Steadfast's weapons struck with impossible precision. Taehyun could see the weakest points in the enemy shields before firing, could predict exactly how the neighbor ships would try to evade. 4 enemy vessels exploded in the first volley. They're changing tactics, warned Hwa-young. They're firing randomly, trying to hit us by accident. The desperate strategy failed. Taehyun guided the ship through the storm of energy beams, always one step ahead. In the neural interface, he could see the probabilities shift and flow, could choose the safest path through the chaos. When it was over, all 12 neighbor ships had been destroyed. The Steadfast hadn't taken a single hit. Back on Earth, Professor Kim Doyan reviewed the battle data with growing excitement. It's more powerful than we thought, she told Commander Jaiwoo. The quantum effect doesn't just make our ships hard to hit. It actively predicts enemy movements and counters them before they happen. How is that possible? Jaiwoo asked. The ship exists across multiple quantum states, Kim explained. This includes states seconds into the future. Captain Lee can see these states through the neural interface and navigate between them, essentially choosing the most favorable future from multiple possibilities. News of the Steadfast's victory spread quickly. More ships were fitted with the quantum technology. More pilots were trained to use the neural interface. For the first time, Earth forces began to push back against the neighbor invaders. But there was a cost. After each mission, Taehyun suffered intense headaches. Sometimes his nose would bleed during neural connection. The human mind wasn't designed to perceive multiple realities simultaneously. You need rest, Dr. Jang told him after one particularly difficult battle. The neural strain is accumulating. I'll rest when the war is over, Taehyun replied, wiping blood from his upper lip. On the far edge of human space, a naval communication ship intercepted the battle recordings. The supreme commander of the invasion force watched in silence as the impossible human vessel destroyed 12 of his best ships. His mandibles clicked nervously. They move between realities, he reported to the Naval High Command. They see our attacks before we make them. Our weapons are useless. For the first time in their long history of conquest, the neighbors faced an enemy they couldn't understand. An enemy they couldn't hit. An enemy that seemed to know their every move in advance. For the first time, the neighbors knew fear. As the moonlight cast long shadows across the ancient courtyard, Elena stood motionless, her hand resting on the hilt of her worn leather-bound sword. Across from her, Marcus squared his shoulders, his eyes burning with a mixture of anger and something deeper, a pain that ran through their shared history. The night was quiet, almost too quiet. Wind whispered through the crumbling stone pillars, carrying with it the weight of unspoken words and broken promises. They had once been close, childhood friends, then partners, and now? Now they were opponents, forced to face each other in a confrontation that had been years in the making. Marcus spoke first, his voice low and controlled. You know why I'm here, Elena. The artifact cannot remain in your possession. His hand unconsciously touched the medallion hanging from his neck, a symbol of the order he now served. Elena didn't move. She understood the stakes better than anyone. The small bronze object tucked safely in her leather satchel was more than just a relic, it was a key to unlocking ancient powers that could change everything. I can't let you take it, she replied simply. Her fingers traced the intricate markings on her sword's handle, a weapon passed down through generations of her family. Tension filled the space between them. Years of friendship, of shared secrets and adventures, now reduced to this moment of confrontation. They both knew only one of them would walk away. Marcus took a step forward. The moonlight caught the edge of his blade, making it gleam like silver. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, he warned. But there was a tremor in his voice, a hint of the friendship they once shared. Elena shifted her weight, ready. Her training kicked in, every muscle prepared for movement. She had spent years preparing for this moment, learning the secrets that would protect the artifact and prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. The first attack came suddenly. Marcus lunged, his sword cutting through the night air with surprising speed. Elena blocked, the clash of metal ringing out across the empty courtyard. They moved like dancers, each step calculated, each movement a response to the other's attack. But this was more than just a fight. It was a conversation without words, a battle of trust and betrayal, of choices made and paths taken. Every strike told a story, of their past, of the moments that had led them here. Marcus was stronger, but Elena was faster. She ducked and weaved, using the courtyard's broken columns for cover. The artifact felt heavy in her satchel, a constant reminder of what was at stake. Their fight continued, neither gaining a clear advantage. Sweat mixed with moonlight, their breaths becoming ragged and intense. Old memories flickered between them, summers spent training together, nights shared around campfires, promises that seemed eternal. Then something changed. A moment of hesitation, a split second where recognition passed between them. Marcus saw something in Elena's eyes, a determination that went beyond simple protection. And Elena recognized the conflict within Marcus, a soldier following orders, but not truly believing in them. Their blades locked. Face to face, they stood frozen, understanding passing between them without words. We don't have to be enemies, Elena whispered. Marcus's grip on his sword wavered. In that moment, everything could change. The artifact. Their friendship. The future that hung in the balance. The courtyard held its breath, waiting. Would they fight to the end? Or would they find another way? Their next move would determine everything. As the first light of dawn broke through the misty courtyard, Elena and Marcus stood facing each other, their previous tension slowly melting into something unexpected. The artifact lay between them, a small bronze object that seemed to pulse with an ancient energy. Marcus was the first to lower his weapon. We can't continue like this, he said, his voice tired but determined. Years of following orders had worn him down, and something in Elena's eyes spoke of a deeper truth he could no longer ignore. Elena watched him carefully. She knew Marcus wasn't just another soldier. They had shared too much history, too many memories to be simple enemies now. The artifact represented more than just a prize to be won, it was a key to understanding a hidden world that both of them had only glimpsed. The Order wants more than just this object, Elena said quietly. Her fingers brushed the satchel where the artifact rested. They want control. Power that was never meant to be controlled. Marcus nodded slowly. Something had changed between them, the anger of their previous confrontation replaced by a growing understanding. He remembered their childhood, the days when they had dreamed of adventure together, before different paths had pulled them apart. A distant sound made them both tense. Footsteps. Someone was approaching. "We're not alone," Marcus whispered, moving closer to Elena. The years of training kicked in, two fighters who knew each other's movements perfectly, now united by a common threat. From the shadows of the ancient courtyard, dark figures began to emerge. They were dressed in black, their faces hidden, carrying weapons that gleamed with a strange, unnatural light. These were not ordinary soldiers, they were something else entirely. Elena pulled the artifact from her satchel. It seemed to grow warm in her hand, its bronze surface reflecting the early morning light. "They want this more than we could have imagined," she said. Marcus drew his sword. "Then they'll have to go through us." The first attackers moved with impossible speed. They were not human, or at least, not entirely human. Each step was too precise, too calculated. Their movements suggested something more than simple soldiers. Elena and Marcus fought back to back, their styles complementing each other perfectly. Years of friendship and training showed in every move. Where one was weak, the other was strong. Where one left an opening, the other covered it. The battle was fierce but quick. Strange creatures fell around them, their bodies dissolving into shadows as quickly as they had appeared. The artifact continued to pulse, almost as if it were alive, watching the conflict. "We can't keep running," Marcus said between strikes. "We need to understand what this really means." Elena knew he was right. The artifact was more than just an object, it was a key to something bigger. Something that could change everything they knew about their world. As the last of the attackers fell, silence returned to the courtyard. Broken stones, scattered weapons, and wisps of strange dark smoke were the only evidence of the battle. "We need to talk," Elena said, picking up the artifact. It felt heavy with meaning, with secrets waiting to be uncovered. Marcus nodded. The enemies they had just fought were just the beginning. Something larger was coming, and they both knew it. Their alliance was unexpected but necessary. Years of conflict, of being on opposite sides, had suddenly transformed into a shared purpose. The artifact would be their guide, their key to understanding a world much more complex than they had ever imagined. "Where do we start?" Marcus asked. Elena looked at the bronze object in her hand. "At the beginning," she replied. The morning sun continued to rise, casting long shadows across the ancient courtyard. Two former enemies, now united, prepared to uncover a mystery that had been waiting centuries to be revealed. Their journey was just starting, and nothing would be the same again. As the ancient temple's stone walls echoed with distant whispers, Elena and Marcus stood before an enormous carved archway. The artifact they had fought so hard to protect now rested in a small indentation on the central stone platform, its bronze surface glowing with a soft, pulsing light. "We've come too far to turn back now," Marcus said, his voice steady but filled with tension. Years of searching, fighting, and uncovering secrets had led them to this moment. Elena touched the artifact carefully. It responded to her touch, sending ripples of energy across the chamber. The walls seemed to breathe with ancient magic, stones that had witnessed centuries of hidden history. Suddenly, the temple began to shift. Massive stone panels moved silently, revealing intricate carvings that told a story older than any living memory. Images of battles, of ancient civilizations, of powers beyond human understanding danced across the walls. The artifact started to rise, floating between Elena and Marcus. Its light grew stronger, brighter, filling the entire chamber with a brilliant golden glow. "Something's happening," Marcus whispered, his hand instinctively reaching for his sword. Elena remained calm. "We're about to learn the truth." Voices began to echo, not from any living person, but from the stones themselves. Memories of past conflicts, of battles fought long ago, of a world that existed before recorded history. The artifact was more than an object. It was a keeper of memories. Images flashed around them. Civilizations rising and falling. Magical battles that had shaped the world. Secrets that had been hidden for thousands of years suddenly became clear. Marcus saw his own family's history revealed, generations of protectors, warriors who had guarded against forces most people didn't understand. Elena watched her lineage unfold, a path of scholars and guardians who had kept ancient knowledge safe. The artifact's light began to concentrate, forming a bridge between Elena and Marcus. They could see each other's memories, feel each other's experiences. Years of misunderstanding melted away, replaced by a deep connection. "We were never enemies," Elena said softly. "We were always meant to be here. Together." The temple continued to reveal its secrets. Hidden chambers opened. Ancient mechanisms that had been dormant for centuries suddenly came to life. The artifact was more than a key, it was a gateway to understanding the world's deepest mysteries. Outside, the world remained unchanged. People walked their streets, went about their lives, completely unaware of the massive revelation happening within these ancient stone walls. Marcus looked at Elena. "What happens now?" She smiled, a smile that held both wisdom and hope. "Now we protect. Now we understand." The artifact slowly descended, resting between them. Its light dimmed, but its power remained. They had unlocked something important, not just a historical secret, but a connection that transcended time and conflict. Their journey had been long. Battles fought. Friendships tested. Secrets uncovered. And now, in this moment, everything made sense. The temple seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Centuries of waiting had finally come to an end. The guardians had found each other. The artifact had found its true purpose. As sunlight began to filter through hidden openings in the temple's ceiling, Elena and Marcus stood side by side. No longer enemies. No longer strangers. But partners, united by a mission bigger than themselves. The world outside would never know what had happened here. But they would know. And that was enough. The artifact pulsed one last time, a heartbeat of ancient magic, of connection, of hope. Their story was just beginning.